Get 5 coffins ready.
Hey everyone, welcome to my guide for Discordia. Discordia is an AoE burst mage with a heaping spoonful of CC on top, and is only ever seen in the mid lane. Discordia is an awesome pocket pick to have in the mid lane, pretty much never being considered bad, and is extremely safe to boot, bringing something to the table every match. Build-wise, Discordia usually focuses on gold cooldown reduction, since while she can burst, she's mostly focused on spamming out her core abilities, and really requires her ultimate to be available to be useful in a fight. Relics-wise, it's your typical beads and ages. Discordia doesn't need anything like a shell since she has a very fast leap. Shard-wise, well, it depends on your jungler. With a more aggressive jungler, you want a claw shard. Then with a weaker jungler, typically you need 2 rotations of abilities for a kill since your jungler does less damage, so there you want horn shard. Recipe-wise, party punch all the way in Conquest. In game modes other than Conquest though, go bountiful bow. If the game is shaping up to be a rough one, some secret hidden tech on Discordia is Sturdy Stew. She can actually get it stacked quite easily. Let's get to talking about how she can stack it quicker by getting her passive out of the way. Whoever has top damage on a team with Discordia will be granted bonus power, and this can include Discordia herself. This makes Discordia great in teams that focus on heavy burst, and it's part of why she herself deals decent but not overwhelming damage, since she's already so helpful at boosting her hypercarry teammates' damage, and is capable of boosting her own damage too with this passive if she's the one carrying. Yep, that's it. If you're anything like me, spam out abilities whenever you can to ensure you get the benefit of this passive. This is best done with Discordia's first ability. Discordia throws a projectile which can be thrown at short or long range, and will pass through all enemies and walls. However, if you try to throw it over a wall that's too thick, the ability will stop short at the wall, so be careful about trying to shoot over walls that are too thick or too far away. Upon reaching its maximum distance, or the distance Discordia chose, it will land on the floor and scatter projectiles around randomly, which will damage enemies. So when an enemy is hit square on with this ability and takes the entire projectile when it lands, they will in turn take damage from all these projectiles, making the ability go from, levels of damage to, levels of damage. But clearly, you need setup to get that full damage potential. So when going for this ability raw, which frankly doesn't happen often, you usually just want to shoot it right through your target to be safe. Then, once you have some setup, either from yourself or a teammate, line it up so it'll explode all over their faces. On the opposite end of this though, don't forget that those little projectiles that get scattered around still deal damage too, but more importantly, still activate item effects. So if you have no chance of hitting someone with this ability, don't forget that you can just throw it on the ground to spread those projectiles around. This is especially worth doing on a regular basis once you get access to Soul Reaver, which is an item that allows your abilities to do % health bonus damage. Let's get to how you set up for yourself by talking about Discordia's second ability. After a short delay, Discordia deals damage in a rectangle AoE that she can place at exceptionally long range. Enemies hit by this ability are rooted, but if more than one enemy god is hit by this ability, they will be taunted towards each other, meaning that they will slowly begin walking towards one another and basic attack each other. Although of course they don't deal the full basic attack damage to each other. Now that part of the ability is insane, but let's talk about the more common usage, that root. Obviously, your combo now is 2-1, but you want to get comfortable enough with timing this little combo so you don't wait for the root to actually happen before you throw your first ability for maximum burst and minimum reactability. Of course, don't feel bad if you're going a bit slower at first and want to actually confirm that your root hits before going for your 1, especially considering your 2 actually outranges your first ability, meaning optimally, you want to position yourself at the max range of your 2 and then walk up as it's about to hit for your first ability. So doing this combo a bit more slowly at first to get the timing down is definitely understandable. But just remember that optimally, you want to start firing your first ability essentially as the root from your second ability is already about to hit. And that comes with a lot of practice with Discordia's too. This is a very simple ability with decent size, but that timing can feel extremely awkward until you're nice and used to it. So if you don't get it at first, don't feel discouraged. It's not difficult, just different. So let's touch on that insane taunting version when you hit multiple gods. It's a total pain for the enemy team to deal with, and you want to punish enemies who don't respect it at any given opportunity. Even if you're not able to walk up for your first ability, you always want to tag multiple gods with this whenever you can. As when this ability is a root, it's whatever, the enemy team can just dash or leap away, but this taunt CC completely locks them all in place. It's just as good if not better than the CC a lot of Guardians can put out. But as with the regular version of this ability, its sluggish speed can make it deceptively hard to hit, so while you absolutely want to use this whenever you see enemy gods stacked on top of each other, you also don't want to get overzealous and just start walking up when the enemy gods look like they might be close to each other. You really want to use this ability on reaction to them being close enough for it, not stand around in an unsafe position hoping they get close enough together for this ability to hit. You may see this combo and think, hey, that seems okay, long range CC and decent damage with the potential for a teamfight opener with the rare but insanely strong taunt version of the 2. But can't they just dash or leap away from all this? Or worst comes to worst, they just use a relic to get out of it. Absolutely, and that's where Discordia's third ability comes into play. Discordia leaps underground, and when she pops back up, she spawns an AoE around herself. While in this AoE, she will gain movement speed and will be stealthed, with of course attacking with the basic attacks or abilities breaking this stealth. Also, Discordia's first and second abilities will have their cooldowns reduced while Discordia is in this AoE, and keep in mind she does not need to be stealthed to have her cooldowns reduced. so when ahead or when playing off of a jungler's gank, you can easily leap in 2-1, then stay in this AoE, then 2-1 again. And once this ability has more points into it later on in the match, the more cooldowns will be reduced, and Discordia can easily get 3 rotations out of her 2-1 combo while in this AoE. It's pretty crazy. This is obviously restrictive though. You want to use that stealth portion to your advantage to make yourself harder to catch, while still keeping yourself in the area so that you remain stealth and get your cooldowns back. While Discordia is all about spamming, you don't want to spam out basic attacks while you're in this area, since it'll reveal you. Really, you just want to focus on juking around and generally being unpredictable while stealthed. This usually means being around the edges of the area so that the enemy team has a harder time pinpointing you. And remember, even if an enemy enters the area or hits you, you aren't revealed. Just taking damage will give them a general idea where you are in the area. So don't get too skittish and leave the area when you don't have to. You should stay in it for as long as you can to ensure your main combo comes off as often as possible. Let's talk about this ability as an escape though, and it's a great one at that. It's easily one of the fastest leaps in the game, and being a leap, it means you can avoid abilities as they come at you. With fast enough reaction times, you can easily avoid hard CC from Guardians and huge mage ultimates alike. You gotta be fast and you've gotta aim the ability too. It might not be so easy depending on the situation. It's easy to get caught up in this huge outplay mentality though. This is still your only movement ability, so you want to use it wisely. You can of course do crazy moves all day diving around at your feet to avoid abilities while not giving up any range, then going to Pound Town with your core abilities. But get too ballsy like this in the wrong matchup and you're completely toast. So you need to have good knowledge about who you're against to know if you should A. leap away immediately from them and forego the AoE completely since they can gap close you. This is usually best against very mobile assassins like Pele and Susano. Or B. leap away from them but stay in your AoE and try your best to fight them while in the AoE. This is best against fellow mages and some hunters, but not against hunters with AoE ultimates like Cupid or Ishtar. Or finally C. leap either in place or towards them to fight them aggressively. This of course is more risky, but is good into hunters who lack CC or against mages who have no chance of being able to outrange you without getting hit or struggle to play through your stealth, like for instance someone like Ra for the stealth or Vulcan for the range. That said, if things go either very wrong or very right, you can always rely on your ultimate as Discordia to seal the deal. Discordia becomes CC immune and winds up, then throws a projectile. This projectile passes through and damages minions, bounces off of walls, and stops on the first enemy god hit. Upon hitting an enemy god, the projectile will attach itself to the enemy, intoxicate them, which will make them strafe side to side, and cripple them. After 2 seconds they will explode, being dealt damage again and attaching another projectile to any enemy gods who are inside the AoE, which will again detonate after 3 seconds. One word. Wow. Where do we even start here? To get it out of the way, this ability is obviously a teamfight annihilator. However, don't be afraid to just use it for self-peel too. As I mentioned earlier, Discordia's leap is great, but it doesn't have the best range, so against those fast gods like Susano, Pele, or Set, you can leap away, but then turn around as they're trying to CC you to get some CC immunity on yourself, as well as apply a cripple and intoxicate to them, making it much harder for them to catch back up to you. And if you create enough space, 2 of them as well for good measure. And while looking to kill in the laning phase, usually with the help of your jungler, despite the huge range of this ability, you do want to try and get closer to your target before casting this ability. Yeah, mages aren't supposed to get up close and personal, and you want to keep as much range as you can, but really, you want to either wait for your root or teammate's CC to hit, leap in with your 3 to get closer to cast this ability, because when you use it too far away, it becomes one of the easiest abilities to avoid in the game. Well, what about where it's best, in those teamfights? This is an ability you want to use either at the start of fights or in the middle of them. You never want to try and end fights or kills with them with this ability. You really want it active and wreaking havoc during the fight. Saving it for a kill is pretty pointless, as not only is it hard to hit at long range, but clearly a huge part of this ability is the chaos it causes. Just like trying not to group too close with one another against Discordia because of her second ability, this ability also adds a layer of "oh dear lord, get that guy away from me" when you plant this ult on a target. And of course, it's difficult for the enemy team to get away from that AoE, since not only is it huge, but also because of that intoxicate effect, making it harder for the affected target to get away from their team and vice versa. The great part of all this is that it more or less just kind of happens for you. You just need to focus on actually hitting the ability, and then let the chaos ensue. So let's get to that. This ability is massively wide, so if SMITE were played on a football pitch, you'd be set. However, this ability not going through walls is a big problem if you're trying to keep your distance like a good mage player, but what with all the nooks and crannies in the jungle area of game modes like Conquest, Siege, and Joust, it can be hard to hit. Luckily though, positioning as Discordia is extremely simple, since you can place yourself at the maximum of your second ability's range, and that allows you to either have a good shot at hitting your second ability or your ultimate, so focus on trying to give yourself clear line of sight while not trying to hit this ability at maximum range. Obviously though, you can't always do that, and that's where the ricochet portion comes into play. The ability is slow, that's for sure, so for targets at huge ranges you usually want to hit them with a ricochet to make it more difficult to avoid, since, well, if you see a giant apple coming at you, you just kind of move over. But ricocheting the apple makes it much less cut and dry as to where you want to go to avoid the apple. Of course, if you say rooted an enemy or are playing off your teammate's CC, just throw the apple. But if you're at incredibly long ranges and just looking for one target, try and go for the ricochet instead. But back to the more normal usage of this ability. As a mage, you may be inclined to go for squishy targets with this ultimate, and that's who you'd hit with your 2-1 combo for sure. But remember I mentioned you really want to have this ability go out at the first part of a team fight. So yes, with this ability it really is alright and in some situations encouraged to be placed onto tanks. It not only does a lot of damage, but remember the entire enemy team is trying to play around what their tanks do, and some tanks require being near their allies to peel and protect them. And if they do succeed in CCing members of your team, remember that now they still have that apple on them. So remember that means the enemy team has to walk towards their tank, the guy with the apple on him, to follow up off of that CC. It really does stop tanks dead in their tracks in this regard. And even better is placing it on movement-based tanks, gods like Maui, Kuzumbo, Charon, Terra, and so on, who focus on using their movement abilities to CC your team, which they can't do if they have the apple on them. That said, of course, if you see a chance to ult a squishy target, do it, right away. Just keep the wind-up time in mind and expect the target to use things like their beads or cleanse on the cripple or their Aegis to avoid the final detonate damage. Let's start piecing all this together with some combos. 2, 1. 2, 1, 3 in place. 2, 1. 3 in. 2, 1. 2, 1. 3 in. 2, 1. Ult. 2, 1. 2, 1. 3. 2 ult. Walk up in 1. 3 in, 2, ult, 1, 2, 1. For ability leveling, you want your 1 to level 1, and try to drop your 1 on top of all the jungle monsters at once for maximum damage. Then at level 2, you level your 2, and your 3 at level 3. From there you max your 1, your 2, then your 3, leveling up the ultimate whenever you can. Discordia is just excellent. She's got good damage, decent CC, a solid escape, and causes a ton of chaos in every teamfight she's in. However, she's definitely an honest character despite how annoying she can be to play against. If you get too ambitious with your aggression, you can get punished for it, really easily. All that self-peel with your second ability and ultimate is great on paper, but all whoever's diving you has to do is use a CC immune ultimate or their beads to cleanse the ultimate and you're very, very dead. It's funny, despite Discordia's prowess as an AoE based mage, she herself isn't very good against large AoE abilities, especially when it comes to things that can just sort of be pasted over her third ability. Things like Susanoo ultimate, Ishtar ultimate, and so on. This is where becoming a good Discordia comes into play. You want to be active in the fight and be in your 3, but your 3 is also an insane immunity tool that when timed right can completely thwart full combos, especially assassin combos. So as Discordia, you need to toe the line between being an aggressive AoE spammer and at the same time know when it's best to hold on to your 3 in reserve to immune some of the most impactful abilities in the game. Thor's ultimate's got to be one of my favorites to immune with it. And then finally, your ultimate. It really is as simple as just chucking it into the enemy team and letting the enemy team do the rest for you. No matter how you use it, the ultimate is either going to win you the team fight by itself or force the enemy team to burn important relics and abilities to avoid it. It's excellent and despite all the layers to it, extremely easy for you to use. So look to Discordia for a consistently good and fun mage. Who's good at the skill floor but takes a while to get to the skill ceiling with, but once you get there, there's almost nothing that can stop you. Except for Opwash. And Raijin. And Amaterasu as well. Wow, yeah, this meta is not too good for her, but that's all I have on Discordia for now. Thanks for watching.